welcome to Wine Library TV. I am your host, Gary Vaynerchuk, and this, my friends, is the Thunder Show, aka the internet's most passionate wine program. And I gave a lot of thought. I did Zen stuff. I did all that stuff. I wanted to really think about how I could make episode 700 really special. What could we do different? And we've always done something a little different, you know, for the hundreds, the 00 episodes. But kind of ironically, I decided to turn this one on a switch and just do what we do best. You know, we've gone through probably 300 or so episodes of a lot of on the road, a lot of flip cam. Yesterday's episode was actually the new iPhone. That's why I had that weird, you know, like framing. Lots and lots of guests in the last 300 episodes. And I've noticed that the few and far between times that we actually just do what we do, the way we do it, there's been a lot of comments saying, I like that. I like the classic format. And today's really about remembering how we got here. Several people I want to thank. This list is of very people that are hardcore in the forums. A lot of them have been around for a long time. And I'll get to that in a minute. Just, you know, such a journey. I mean, what are we now? 3.5 years in, episode 700, 300 more to go to episode 1000, Mott. That's insane. You think we'll get there?
Yeah, I think so, in some shape or form.
One way or another.
Yep. We'll
persevere. And also, you know, since my theme last night was remembering how we got here, giving some shout-outs to a lot of the great people that have helped me get here, hardcore fans, thought about vintages that I remembered. And so I brought out a couple things here today that I'm excited about. An 88 Burgundy that reminds me of the year that I started doing baseball cards, which probably led me in a lot of ways to the wine industry because my love of collecting, when then turned into wine, has really been that passion, that hook. When I hated my dad's liquor store, when I found out people collected wine, that kind of brought me in. A 97 Italian Super Umbrian wine that I remember, mainly because probably that was the meat and potatoes of my wine career. It was one of my early trips to Italy, and I went with Bobby. And then finally, a 94 Cab, which is definitely the category. 94 Cabs was my coming out party, was Wine Library's coming out party in a lot of ways. It was really the first vintage that I sold at Shoppers Discount Liquors. I knew every rating from Parker and Spectator from the 94 Cabs. I was doing the buying, and it really, the 94 Insignia, when I decided to sell it at cost at $39.99 when everybody else in the world was $59.99, was the first wave of people becoming serious customers of mine. And so 94 Cabs hold a very near and dear place in my heart, and it's very time sensitive because we'll be spending a lot of time in the fall, I think, around 07 Napa Cabs, a vintage that is getting enormous hype. I've tasted a couple of wines and I'm extremely bullish and excited about, so we'll probably be doing a lot of extensive, you know, though we stay away from Napa quite a bit, though we did the Schaefer episode the other day and I'm kind of falling back in love with Napa a little bit. I'd like to see the prices come down, but 07 is shaping up to be a very special vintage. Before we get into the wines, I'm just going to go through a list of giving, you know, shout out to some people. Brandon M. 4? Did he come in episode 4? The leading post are on our forums, Mott. Though of those 17,000 posts he's left, at least 16,000 have been negative towards me. So we got to really question if we want to give him a shout out. New York Pete, who I love so much. Coop 60. I didn't realize Coop got up there. I you know.
One of our moderators?
One of our moderators. Thank you, Mr. Mott. Great dude. SS Chris and Cab Drinker. Amelia. Kahuna, who is absurd on so many levels. Tim F., who is my arch rival. I'm just kidding, Tim. Love him. Recently on the episode. Sierra Doc, who I think is a tremendous human being, and I always love to see when I'm in the West Coast. Brooklyn Paul, who is awesome. Love that guy. Gene, who is, you want to talk, wouldn't you say Gene V is like the classiest guy? You like him?
Yes, I do.
I think he's one class act. Susanna and Monravino, SoCal, Ottawa B, Smokey Us, you know, Tampa Steve. Where is Tampa Steve? It's like, you know, we got to redig up, you know, episode 800, we're making a commitment. We need Tampa Steve sitting next to me. Italian Stallion and Tampa Steve, episode 800. What do you think, Bot? You think we pull that off? Jay, the classy Jay, Slave to the Vine, Dr. T, Rich S, who I adore, Leather Palette, Old World, New World guy. Love a lot of his comments. Steve B, Callie Cad, who probably loves the whole, focus on Cali Cab. Weinstein, who is hilarious. Joe G, who's highly respected and one charismatic guy, and wild dresser. I love the way he rocks the rings and everything. Smoke and Mirrors, DC13, and Ken P. Big shout out to all you guys. Very, very special shout out to you guys. I appreciate all the effort. And if you're watching the show and you've not been part of the forums, sign up, get in there. What have you been tasting lately? The tasting notes is a really interesting part. Mott, link that up, and let's get the forum,
Yeah.
I know you know. Let's get into the wines. Joseph Drouhin, 1988 Beaune Romanée Pinot Noir based wine. I love this. The old wine library stickers. I used to sticker these on bottles my whole life. When we went to a computer system, it may have been the greatest day of my life because stickering Kendall Jackson $8.99 40 trillion times a day was frustrating. Yeah, it was crazy. Now, hoping this wine is holding up. The cork came through pretty strong. Not just a little focus on the cork here. A spinorama. There's a little leaky action possibly right there. But we'll see what's going on. Let me just rinse. Want to make sure we give it the proper. That was a weird sound. Sniffy sniff. Let's see what's going on. All right, very light in color. You're starting to see that classic copper, brownish outer edges that develop in older Pinot. This is 20 plus now. This Pinot can drink a lot. I mean, this is an old little bottle of wine here. Get a little bit in here, a little cloudiness. Let's give them a sense here. A little cloudiness, little that, kind of almost like, kind of looks like fruit compote, like my grandma used to make. Like all the fruit, it would be like that kind of color. Let's give it a sniffy sniff. Classic barnyard coming through. Pretty stinkified, sweaty socks, little sheep butt, cow poop action that we all like to stay away from. But there's also a subtle cherry fruit component that wraps around all that barnyard. So it's kind of like the cherry farmer stopped by, Charlotte's Webb's farm. But it has a lot more aromatics going for it than I maybe even expected, which is really exciting, and which is another kind of semi-myth. I love the fact, I think people realize wine can last a long time, but I don't think they think that things like even just pure village wine from Beaune Romanée, they think it's got to be a premier cru or something very serious or hundreds of dollars a bottle, but a lot of wines are much stronger and age much longer than people think. As a matter of fact, the real crime is that on average, especially in the US, we drink our wines obnoxiously young, and it'd be people live in the city or don't have space, and I wish people had more room to let most red wines get that 2, 3, 4 year just oomph it needs. Little cellaring action. I also get a little bit of a beets kind of flavor on the nose, almost like beets and a little vegetal aspect. I like it. Let's give it a whirl. Let's see what's going on the palate. Thinned out at this point, but still has a little bit more than I think most people would expect. Quite bitter and a little bit disjointed on the back end. Really sour cheeks, inner sour cheeks syndrome happening to me right now, but I'm okay with that. I do like the vegetal play, but there is really little to no underlining fruit at this point. Just give it one more shot. There's a little graininess, almost like wheat, like cream of wheat, just a graininess, kasha. I'm looking at, the Russian word kasha is really what I'm tasting a little bit. Let me give it one more shot. I picked it up again, and I was wondering if it was there. I'll tell you what this really has on the initial attack. A little rhubarb, which I think is quite interesting, and does make the wine overall fascinating. There's a little black pepper on the back end as well. But at the end of the day, there's two ways to look at this. One, I'm very excited that this is more than drinkable. It's not spoiled or shot or dead, but at the same token, it's really on its last leg. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago, could have been a little bit more interesting, a little more depth, a little more second-tier flavor profile, a little more complexity, a little more interest. But I can't complain, especially if you bought it back in the day for $33.99. I don't know exactly what the current price point would be. It wouldn't be too much higher. It wouldn't be insane. But respect this wine. Drinkable. I'm flattered to have the experience. 88. Let's go into that a little bit. was definitely the year. That was my, in '88, I was in 6th grade. That was the year there was a baseball card club in Edison, New Jersey at John Adams Middle School. I decided to go there. I forced my mom to take me to the US 1 flea market. Kevin Smith talks about the US 1 flea market all the time, the famous director. Anyway, US 1 flea market, there something weird happened. I bought a baseball card price guide, not just cards. And that's when I figured out that when I opened these cards, they actually had a value. And that changed the game. So '88 is a very special year to me. It's when I really became entrepreneurial. Obviously, I had the lemonade stand and all that other stuff. But it was when I started my first official baseball card business. And it's really exciting. I thought I was going to have to do a sparkling wine for '88. But we found this in the cellar and it was exciting. And showing not too bad. All right. Let's move on. Lamborghini. Campolone. 1997, Umbria, a third, and that's 33% to you guys. Merlot, Cab, and Sangiovese, 97 points. Robert Parker, and currently is selling in the market for about 140 bones. This is an absolute classic cult wine. This was hysteria. This is the only wine that I've ever bought and brought home from a trip outside the U.S. in my life. So this has a very interesting backstory. It was super hot. Parker gave it 97 points. This was a time when 97-point scores were still a little bit more of a rarity. Everybody wanted it because, people were buying Sassicaia, Celaya. This was like a new big wine. It was impossible to get. Winebow Leonardo Locasio brought the wine in. It just could not get it for anything. And I went on a trip to Italy, Piedmont, Umbria, Tuscany, and asked for it everywhere we went, just everywhere, like almost like my old baseball card days, collecting toys, looking for it. Found it at the small wine bar. Bobby and I bought it, brought it home. So I'm excited to drink this again. Also, like 94 Cab, 97 Super Tuscans, 97 Italy was another very big vintage in my career. It was very hot. Everybody wanted a piece of it, and it was definitely. WineLibrary.com had now been developed and out, and so it was a very, very big vintage. Another 94 Napa, 97, Italy, 2000 Bordeaux. Some of these vintages have special career moments for me, and this definitely does. This specific wine has a lot of special meaning. It was the first time I ever went to Italy. It really opened up my eyes to the quality and the history and the terroir. And I went with Bobby, who's been on Wine Library TV, my cousin, who's general manager here at Wine Library, who I love with all my heart. So family and business history and just learning, just a great wine from my memory. And I think this is the first time I'm ever having this wine. So this is pretty neat. All right, let's give it a sniffy sniff. Big blackberry flavors exploding on my nose like a grenade. I mean, just massive amounts of blackberry, blueberry, dark fruit for days on the nose. What I like about this wine, though, it also has a little bit of a lilac floral component mixed in with that, especially on the back end. So it's fruit, and then it gets a little floral for me on the back end of the nose, which I just find completely fascinating. Always a style that appeals to my nose. And again, as you know, if you're not sniffing enough, you're missing such a big part of the experience. Please, please smell your wines. Let's give this wine a whirl. First reaction, this wine is drinking extremely young still. So that's nice to see. This wine is still a good decade away from getting to a place where maybe it's even mellowing out. I mean, this wine will last. I love the dry black tea component that my palate is left with on the finish. Very dry wine, big complexities. I get a coffee component as well. So we're having morning beverages. No orange juice. Just, a little coffee, a little tea, which I like quite a bit. Great transition on the mid-palate. A lot of times with these wines that have grapefruit, you start seeing a dip, a little hollow play, a little disappearing, a little Casper the Friendly Ghost action on the mid-palate. But on this wine, there's a great transition, and it really just flows seamlessly. Just really impressed with the progression of this wine as it goes through your palate. I'll give it one more shot. Big structure. Really, it reminds me of a modern day Bordeaux, meaning a little bit more sunshine, a little more fruit than some of the classics, let's say, pre-95. And that's quite interesting to me. There is a little bit of that rustic play. You start seeing the Sangiovese really show its merit, show its real face, as you would say, in this wine towards the tail end. More of a second, third, fourth quarter play. At first, you really get the Cab and Merlot, but you do get that classic Italiano. All of a sudden, you're searching for veal and pasta flavor on the back of your palate. Well made. 140 bones, probably not for me, because I do feel this is replicated in a lot of modern day wines in the $70 to $90 range. But this was originally a $50 wine. So people that bought it out there that have it at that price, phenomenal job. This is a really well-made wine. And on my palate, definitely not a 97, but probably 91, 92. I could probably even see myself going 92 plus on this wine. I like this wine quite a bit. It really shows well. It's got great structure. I think it would last easily, like I said, for another decade. These were pop and pour under tight schedule, so they all deserve a little leeway because they needed to have a little bit more breathing like we normally do. I would say that this is the kind of wine that you can definitely drink over a 24-hour period that will open up quite a bit. And if you're looking for a good pairing, this has a lot of flexibility. I like the fact that this is the kind of wine, because of its body and structure and flavor profile, that not only will work with steak and big meals like that, but this is the kind of wine with a partridge or pigeon, a smaller bird play, I think could be quite a substantial pairing. And that excites me. Heck, I would just eat this with, drink this with potatoes. I mean, this is really, really fun stuff. Let me give it one more shot, just because I want to. It's a good wine. All right, and finally, let's see what Napa has for us. This is the Harrison 1994 Napa Cabernet Sauvignon. This is 88 to 90 points Parker at the time, 93 points Wine Spectator, and now goes for 110 bones. I think we sold it at the time for $34.99. So as you can tell, wine does go up. That's what I think secretly a lot of people that buy a lot of wine are excited about, more so than the golden juice inside. 94 Napa was epic, for lack of a better word. 97 was another vintage. I mean, ultimately, to be honest with you, I think 95 is a better vintage. A little less heralded, but definitely much more complex, higher tannin structure, and I think they've been showing a lot better today, and you kind of just had that sense early on. Kind of reminds me of that 89-90 vintage play that a lot of people, 89 was so hyped by the Spectator and excited, but just 90s, and Parker came out and kind of signified that 90 was a better vintage, but a lot of people still loved 89 at the time, and 90s really pulled away. I think 95 has that chance with Napa, but one thing I'm noticing right off the bat is this color is gorgeous. Take a look at this. Pitch black, just looks like an absolute baby in color, which is quite nice. Let's give it a sniffy sniff. This is slightly aromatically challenged, which hurts my feelings. It makes me want to shed a little bit of a tear, like a tear tattoo, like, the game. Slight little oak coming through, a little black currant, a little plum action on the nose, as a matter of fact, which is kind of nice, but all subtle, all just a hair, just a hint, and really the creamy oaky wood is probably the biggest defining factor in this nose. Let's give it a whirl. I really dislike this wine. Wow. This is exactly what I worry about is possible for a lot of wines that a lot of people are cellaring right now that are high-scored wines in the mid to late 90s from California, because what happens after time, as the fruit starts to go away a little bit, you get left with a massive... You know what I feel like? I'm going to show you what I feel like. I feel as though somebody took this box and took it to one of the Willet blend blenders. Have you seen those on the internet? Link one of those videos up. You have to do a little homework. I'll find it for you. Where they blend iPods and golf balls. You know what I'm talking about, that blender that's insane. I feel like somebody took this wine library box, put it in the Willet blend blender, and then put a little bit of maybe just a hint of real cherry juice and maybe a little quart of milk, and they gave me this and I drank it. That's how much wood. I truly feel after this episode is over that I will go to my bathroom, look in the mirror, and start pulling splinters directly out of my tongue because this wine is so grossly over-oaked. The Oak Monster not only makes an appearance, it has taken over the show. I should actually get up and let the oak take over the show. Go ahead, oak, because that's how ridiculous, that is how ridiculous this is. And this is a major fear of mine. This is why I push so much for a calming down of the 100% new French oak that everybody thinks is so cool. I think it's a very scary proposition because probably why I'm getting most emotional about this right now is, unlike these wines, I've had this wine before twice. When it first came out, which I was a young chap and I liked it, but I liked everything kind of thing. And then probably about 3 or 4 years ago at a tasting, a 94-95 Cab tasting, and it showed fairly well, but I remember something degree of, this is kind of getting oaky. This is appalling. I mean, this is straight wood to the mouth, and I don't like it in any shape or form. I'm going to give it one more shot because obviously this was a very powerful reaction to this wine. Maybe I'm getting a little too excited. It is episode 700. I am an excitable character, but I'm going to try it one more time. Yeah, the back end. I mean, there's just so much. It's a little bit easier on the palate this time. I don't know if it was so much shock, but and I got a little bit wood. I'm coated with some wood, so more wood on wood is not that scary. But this is, to me, a very boring effort. When I see $110 on the back of this bottle, and I think to myself that there is a boatload of wines that I could buy that are $11 that taste like this, it scares me. I'm petrified, and I'm very disappointed with this effort. If I had to score this wine today, I'd probably score this wine in the 70s. And so this is a really disappointing way to end episode 700. But that's the way it goes sometimes. Question of the day. Been doing a lot of remembering with these vintages and just a show, calling out some great friends. How about this? And I really want some comments. This is episode 700. How about what is your most memorable episode of Wine Library TV? Just a number, Mont. Just throw a number in there. You, and I thank you for that. You, with a little bit of me, we are changing the wine.